Imagine a real estate agent is, running late for a showing, so their assistant simply hands you the house key to go look at the property on your own.
Yeah, happens all the time, right?
Right. It seems like common courtesy, just a practical solution to a scheduling conflict. But in the state of Texas, that simple action, literally just handing over a piece of metal, is actually a Class A misdemeanor.
It really is. And it's an offense that comes with formal reprimands and, well, pretty hefty financial fines for the agent.
Which is wild.
It completely shatters the illusion that buying a house is just this, straightforward exchange of goods.
Right.
The moment you step into the professional real estate world, you are entering an incredibly strict, heavily monitored regulatory environment where, every single interaction is scrutinized.
Well, welcome to today's deep dive. We are so thrilled to have you with us today. Our mission here is to unpack the hidden mechanics of the real estate industry. We're looking at how the business of buying and selling homes is evolving, right under our noses.
It's a massive shift.
It is. And to do this, we are building our conversation on two very different, but equally fascinating sources. First, we have the highly detailed Legal Update 2 for 2026 to 2027 from the Texas Real Estate Commission, or TIR.
Oh, yeah. Very dense material.
Very dense. And second, we have this tactical marketing guide straight from next door, which is simply titled Tips for Real Estate Agents.
It's honestly a highly revealing pairing. One source dictates the rigid, non-negotiable rules agents must follow just to keep their licenses, and the other shows us exactly how they're strategizing to find their next client while operating inside that really strict framework.
Because buying or selling a home is probably the largest financial transaction you will ever make in your life. But behind that traditional for sale sign out in the yard, there's this fascinating tug of war happening between human trust, hyper-local social media, and, believe it or not, artificial intelligence.
Right. And to truly understand that tension, we kind of have to start with the bedrock legal foundation. When a license holder acts as an agent for someone else, they become a fiduciary.
Okay, let's unpack this. Fiduciary, that's a big legal word.
It is, yeah. It basically means they are legally bound to put the client's interests entirely above their own personal interests. The State Ethics Board boils this down to 3 non-negotiable rules.
Which are?
Fidelity, integrity, and competency.
And competency isn't just about, passing a multiple choice exam one time. The state gets very specific about geographic competency, which makes total sense. Like, if an agent is supposed to be your local guide, they can't use a map of El Paso to navigate Dallas.
That is a perfect way to conceptualize it. The economic conditions, the hyperlocal market issues, zoning laws, real estate in Beaumont is vastly different from Brownsville.
Totally different worlds.
Exactly. So an agent cannot just operate anywhere in the state simply because they hold a Texas license. They must possess specific localized knowledge to protect the consumer.
And speaking of protecting the consumer, the state does not play around with ambiguity. Before you even get into the weeds of a deal, you need to know exactly whose side the agent is actually on.
Oh, absolutely.
So, agents must provide a specific form detailing their brokerage services, the IABS, at the very first substantive communication. I actually noticed our source points out that Texas eliminated something called subagency to clear up consumer confusion. What exactly was that?
So subagency was an older, highly confusing practice where an agent who brought a buyer to a property actually owed their fiduciary loyalty to the seller.
Wait, really? Not the buyer?
Nope, not the buyer they were driving around and working with all day. It was incredibly misleading for consumers who just naturally assumed the person showing them the house was, negotiating on their behalf.
I would assume that.
Everyone did. Eliminating it was a huge step toward transparency.
That sounds like an absolute nightmare for a buyer. And the case files in the legal update show exactly what happens when agents fail to be transparent today. Look at the case called Whose Money Is It? Anyway.
Oh, that one. Yeah.
A buyer explicitly stated he did not have a broker and didn't want representation. But the seller's broker checked the intermediary box on the contract anyway.
Which we should probably clearly define for the listener.
Good point. Go for it.
An intermediary is a broker who attempts to represent both the buyer and the seller in the exact same transaction. To do that legally, you need explicit written consent from every single party involved.
But wait, she didn't get the buyer's written consent to do this. And, to make matters worse, she put her own license number in the wrong spot on the form.
Yeah, sloppy work.
Very. She was fined $1,500 in order to take 30 hours of agency law courses.
Well, the legal implication there is entirely about implied agency. The state wants to ensure that when you talk to an agent, there is zero ambiguity about their loyalties.
Mm.
If you are unrepresented, they must make it abundantly clear that they are negotiating against you, not for you.
Right. But because these legal duties are so heavy and, time-consuming, agents desperately need help. Which brings us to a major operational hurdle. Bringing in an assistant introduces a whole new minefield of regulations,
It really does. It requires constant vigilance.
because the line between administrative help and unlicensed brokerage activity is razor thin, right?
Exactly. Unlicensed assistants cannot show properties, they cannot host open houses, and they cannot make telemarketing calls to drum up business. They can do purely administrative tasks like bookkeeping, scheduling maintenance, or confirming facts that have already been publicly advertised.
Wait, I have to push back on this for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
If an unlicensed assistant is legally allowed to tell me a house has 3 bedrooms and confirm the price over the phone, why can't they just unlock the front door for me? Isn't turning a key just a mechanical action?
It seems like a harmless mechanical action, doesn't it? But this raises an important question about the underlying philosophy of the law. Under the state rules, unlocking the door and, quote, permitting the property to be viewed is the very definition of a brokerage activity.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because it opens the door literally and figuratively to questions and advice that only a licensed fiduciary is legally qualified to handle.
Okay, I see. So the moment that door swings open, the buyer's going to start looking around and asking, does this floor slope? Or what's that weird smell in the hallway?
Exactly.
And the assistant isn't qualified to navigate those landmines without accidentally acting as an agent.
Precisely. And the state enforces this boundary strictly. We mentioned earlier that handing over a key is a severe violation.
Right, our intro hook.
Yeah, that comes from a real case called She Got a Fee for Giving the Key. An agent had an HVAC servicing appointment at a property, and the assistant just handed the key to a potential buyer to go check the place out concurrently.
Seems innocent enough.
To a normal person, sure. But that simple act resulted in a formal reprimand and a $500 fine for the agent.
That's rough. And the violations can get so much more absurd. Consider the case. Lights, camera, discipline.
This one is unbelievable.
An agent wanted a cool backdrop for a local TV interview. Instead of scouting a proper location, he faked a home showing just to get inside a listed property. He brings the TV reporter inside, does the interview, and the actual sellers of the home end up watching the broadcast on television. They literally saw this random agent standing in their living room on the evening news.
It is a massive violation of trust and the rules of access. He was formally reprimanded and fined $750.
I would be so mad if I were the seller.
Oh, furious! But that strictness doesn't just apply to physical access. It heavily impacts how agents advertise, too. The state is obsessed with transparency. Any advertisement has to have the broker's name at least half the size of the largest contact info.
Half the size, always.
Always. And if you operate a team, the name must end in the word team or group. You can't just call yourself, say, Bluebonnet Real Estate if you aren't the actual broker, because it tricks consumers into thinking a small team of agents is an entire independent brokerage.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because traditional advertising, billboards, park benches, mailers, is so heavily regulated regarding team names and font sizes, agents are actively shifting their strategies.
Right, they're looking for workarounds.
They want to bypass the broad, expensive billboards and find you right where you live using hyperlocal social media. Which brings us to the insights from Nextdoor.
Yes, Nextdoor has evolved far beyond a place to, complain about loud cars or find a lost dog.
Seriously, it's wild how much it's changed.
It has become a highly strategic, incredibly lucrative battleground for real estate agents. And what makes Nextdoor so fundamentally different from other platforms is its architecture. To join a neighborhood, you have to verify your physical address.
Which creates a forced environment of trust. I mean, the internet is usually entirely anonymous, but on Nextdoor, you know the people posting actually live on your street.
Exactly.
So when agents utilize Nextdoor business pages, they're getting directly into the neighborhood newsfeed. They're infiltrating that trusted digital space. That is the very first thing neighbors see when they log in.
And the strategies they deploy within that trusted feed are very deliberate. They post coming soon teasers to spark early interest before a home officially hits the market. They post price-reduced alerts. But the most psychologically brilliant tactic is posting their recently closed listings.
Yeah, and they aren't just doing this to show off. They are selling their track record to the people next door, hoping to turn them into future clients.
Right, it's a seed they're planting.
When you see your neighbor's house sold for a great price, it doesn't just make you wonder what your house is worth. It taps into neighborhood status, the fear of missing out, and curiosity about demographic shifts on your street.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is entirely about establishing local authority. It is the modern digital way of proving that geographic competency we discussed earlier.
Oh, that makes total sense.
By consistently posting local successes on a verified platform, the agent is saying, I know your specific streets, I know your property values, and I am the local expert. They're proving their competency right in the digital town square.
But keeping up that hyper-local hustle, like creating constant engaging content to stay relevant in the newsfeed, it takes an enormous amount of time.
Time they don't always have.
Right. So what are busy agents doing? They're increasingly taking shortcuts by turning to artificial intelligence. But utilizing AI in real estate introduces bizarre and honestly legally dangerous new risks.
It really does. The industry is adopting AI at breakneck speed. It's being used for automated valuation models, predicting market trends, and drafting property descriptions. But the most visually striking application, and the one causing the most regulatory headaches, is virtual home staging.
Okay, the benefits of virtual staging are completely undeniable. Traditionally, staging a home means renting physical furniture, hiring movers, and paying an interior designer.
It takes weeks and costs thousands of dollars.
Exactly. But with AI, you can upload a photo of an empty room, and in seconds, it is digitally filled with beautiful, modern furniture. It is drastically cheaper and incredibly fast.
However, AI isn't human. It doesn't actually know what a house is or what gravity is, for that matter. It simply predicts pixels and words based on probabilities. And when it predicts incorrectly, you get what are known as AI hallucinations.
And these hallucinations can be wild. On the text side, an AI might generate a legal brief, citing court cases that simply do not exist. Or it might generate a neighborhood guide for a listing that highlights a local food bank as a must-see tourist attraction.
Which is terribly inappropriate. And in visual staging, the hallucinations can be highly problematic. AI might misjudge spatial dimensions and create furniture that is literally floating off the ground.
Just levitating couches?
Right. Or it might hallucinate an oversized vase right in the middle of a vital pathway. Oh, and you can't forget the weird physical glitches, like generating an image of a person sitting in the room, but they have 6 fingers.
Oh, creepy.
Very. Or, in one notable example from the training materials, the AI read a prompt and decided to hallucinate a full-sized indoor swimming pool right in the middle of a standard living room.
A swimming pool.
Yeah.
In the living room.
Just dropped right in there.
So what does this all mean? I mean, using AI in real estate is like hiring a brilliant but completely reckless intern. They might stage a room in 5 seconds, but if they hallucinate a swimming pool in the living room, it's your license on the line.
That is the absolute crux of the issue. The funny glitches are one thing, but the true danger is the chain of legal liability. The legal update is crystal clear on this. You can't blame AI.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, the license holder is entirely responsible for any content they publish, regardless of who or what generated it.
So if the AI generates a property description that violates fair housing laws, or if a virtually staged photo makes a property look significantly better than its actual condition, say,
Yeah.
by covering up a massive structural crack with a digital rug, the agent is entirely on the hook for deceiving the public.
Furthermore, bad actors are using AI to facilitate sophisticated wire fraud. They generate fake property photos, write compelling listings, and even use AI-generated video chats that look incredibly real to trick buyers into wiring huge sums of money.
That is terrifying.
The insight here isn't just that AI makes funny mistakes. It's that real estate agents are now legally accountable as the human failsafe against the hallucinations of a machine they don't fully control. They have to verify everything.
Well, we've spent a lot of time talking about the cold, dehumanizing, pixel-predicting nature of AI assessing properties. Now, I want to contrast that by looking at something deeply human.
That's a good pivot.
Yeah, we're going to pivot from algorithms to a long-standing program that evaluates real estate based on real-world survival, the VA loan.
It is a profound shift in how we look at financing. The VA Guaranteed Home Loan Program was created back in 1944 under the Servicemen's Readjustment Act to help returning World War II veterans integrate back into civilian life.
And the benefits are incredible. 100% financing, which means zero down
And
payment.
zero down.
No private mortgage insurance required.
Yeah.
The VA itself doesn't even set a minimum credit score.
Mm.
And for those with full entitlement, there are no loan limits.
But the most significant difference is how they evaluate a borrower's ability to pay. Conventional loans rely heavily on the debt-to-income ratio, or DTI. DTI became the industry norm because it's a very clean, easy metric for conventional banks to calculate institutional risk.
Right, but DTI is just a strict mathematical fraction. It treats a family earning $50,000 and a family earning $500,000 the exact same way if their debt ratio is 45%.
Which doesn't reflect reality.
Exactly. The higher earner obviously has way more actual cash left over to buy food. But wait, residual income actually fixes that math. It calculates the actual discretionary money a veteran has left over each month after paying fixed expenses and childcare.
What's fascinating here is the underlying philosophy. While the VA does allow a flexible 41% DTI, their true priority is that residual income. They aren't just calculating risk to the bank, they are calculating the human sustainability of the loan for the veteran.
So instead of just looking at a cold, rigid ratio like DTI, the VA is actually looking at real life. They're asking, can this family actually afford groceries at the end of the month?
Yes. It's a system designed to ensure the family can actually thrive in the home, not just barely scrape by to make the mortgage payment.
There's also a massive consumer protection built into VA loans called the mandatory clause or the escape clause, right?
Yes, the escape clause.
So if the home appraises lower than the agreed upon purchase price, the veteran is protected from overpaying. They are not legally obligated to buy it. They can walk away without penalty, or they can choose to pay the difference out of pocket.
And we cannot overstate the impact of this program, particularly in a state like Texas. Texas is home to 14 military installations representing all branches of the armed forces.
The numbers in the controller report are staggering. These installations provide over 213,000 direct jobs.
That's a massive workforce.
Huge. And when you factor in indirect employment and the community ripple effects, we're looking at a massive $151.3 billion in economic output generated in Texas alone.
Which means, as a real estate agent operating in that market, understanding the nuances of the VA loan isn't just a nice gesture, it is an absolute necessity. It brings us right back to the beginning of our conversation. It is an essential piece of that geographic and subject matter competency required to truly serve the public.
All right, let's take a breath and look back at the journey we've taken today. We explored the foundational trust and fiduciary duty required by the state. We looked at the incredibly strict boundaries placed on unlicensed assistants. Remember, do not let them just hand you the keys.
Right, keep the keys. And we examined the hyper-local psychology of Nextdoor and how address verification creates a unique marketing environment. We dissected the strict legal liabilities of using AI for staging, and finally, we grounded ourselves in the deeply human-centric impact of the VA loan program.
And the reason we wanted to take you on this specific deep dive is this. Understanding these hidden gears makes you a drastically more empowered and protected consumer in the housing market. Whether it's knowing exactly whose side your agent is on, spotting an AI-generated indoor pool, or understanding the powerful benefits available to our veterans, this knowledge puts you firmly in the driver's seat.
It completely changes how you evaluate the professionals you hire and the information you consume.
But before we let you go, I want to leave you with one final, unexplored idea to mull over. We spend time talking about AI virtually staging homes to manipulate how a room looks today. But what happens when AI starts predicting which homes will go on the market before the owners even decide to sell?
Predictive analytics.
Exactly. If algorithms are constantly analyzing our credit card data, our search histories, our social media habits, if they know our life patterns better than we do, could the next real estate agent knocking on your front door be sent by an AI?
It's entirely possible.
An AI that knows you're about to have a baby, or that you just got a new job in another city before you've even told your own friends. Just remember, the next time you see that simple for sale sign in a front yard, you weren't just looking at a piece of wood. You were looking at the very edge of an incredibly complex, high-tech operation. Something to think about.